Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're looking at The Cabin in the Woods, which premiered at South by Southwest in 2012. It's worth keeping in mind that this was filmed in 2009. Just remember that the years in Kill Count titles are based on the movie's world premiere, which is why you may see discrepancies sometimes. Cabin in the Woods is a horror comedy that manages to satire the entire genre with equal amounts of love and laughs. In fact, one of my favorite things about it is how it could almost canonically explain every other horror movie you've ever watched. Like, they could all feasibly exist in the same world as Cabin. I'll try to point out how throughout this video. You'll see. Cabin was co-written by Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard, who then produced and directed the film respectively. Whedon is of course known for everything from Buffy the Vampire Slayer to the, in my opinion, overly snappy dialogue of the Avengers films.
That man is playing Galaga. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
While Goddard is responsible for things like the Netflix Daredevil series and Bad Times at the El Royale. Their script follows a group of kids who turn into stereotypes during their stay at the titular Cabin in the Woods. If you've never seen it before, you should probably go watch it right now unspoiled, and come back later to finish this video, because shit gets pretty crazy. Let's see how many people die when you deconstruct an entire genre and get to the kills. The movie begins with some bloody hieroglyphics that preview the grand scheme of this movie before cutting to a coffee cart. It's a regular day at the office for Gary Sitterson, played by Richard Jenkins, and Steve Hadley, played by Bradley Whitford. Last seen on the kill count is the dad in Get Out, who would have voted for Obama a third time if he could have. A co-worker, Wendy Lynn, informs them that an operation in Stockholm has gone south, which is going to increase the pressure on them.
That means there's just Japan and us.
Well, it's not the first time it's come down to that.
Japan has a perfect record.
We're number 2. We try harder.
We don't know exactly what they're talking about yet, but maybe we're just not paying enough attention.
Are you even listening to me?
Oh, I am now. We go to a woman packing a suitcase in her underwear. This is Dana Polk, a college student who's trying to get over a recently terminated affair she had been having with a professor. Her newly blonded bestie Jules tells her she needs to get over it, because they're about to go on a camping trip with a cute guy named Holden, who's a friend of Jules's boyfriend Kurt. Both the guys are athletic young lads and pretty charming to boot, just like the rest of this cast. And Kurt's no dummy either, since we see him recommend a heady textbook for Dana to use before reminding her of her current attire.
And you have no pants.
Oh.
Since Cabin was filmed in 2009, it was before Chris Hemsworth was even cast as Thor, but it didn't come out until 2012, 1 year after Thor's release. I always find that kind of funny. As they finish packing up their RV, they're joined by Dana's younger brother Marty, the most stonery stoner you could ever find in Stonerton.
People in this town drive in a very counterintuitive manner.
And yes, his telescopic bong that can disguise itself as a thermos is in fact behind me on the kill count set. Editor Zoran provided both that and that kick-ass painting there. Thanks, Z-Man.
Hey everyone, so a minute ago I introduced Marty as Dana's younger brother, but turns out they're not siblings at all. I don't know why I thought they were for the past 7 years, but yeah, they're not brother and sister, they're just friends. Unfortunately, I do refer to them as siblings throughout the entire duration of this kill count. So, you know, just ignore that as you're watching it, okay? They're not siblings, they're just friends. I know that now, even though I didn't then. Alright, thanks. Let's get back to Past James, that stupid idiot.
Sufficiently pumped, they head out on their adventure, and the first indication that something weird is afoot is this secret agent man on the rooftop who watches them drive away.
Nest is empty. We're right on time.
On their way to Kurt's cousin's cabin, Marty delivers an outlook on society that only sounds more relevant 10 years after this movie was shot.
Everything's filed or recorded or blogged.
That kind of thinking is why he's excited to go off the grid for the weekend. Only he might not be as off the grid as he'd hoped, because in an underground control center, after meeting the new security guard, Daniel Truman, Hadley and Sitterson get to work and lock in on their targets, the kids in their RV. They stop at a gas station that you'd fully expect to sell prize-winning human jerky. It's run by a creepy mofo named Mordecai who spits gay slurs at him and is generally antagonistic as hell. His gas station is meant to be the archetypal stop we've seen in countless horror movies, so it's fun that actor Tim DeZarn here had previously been part of the Texas Chainsaw franchise. He was the guy who owned the slaughterhouse in which Leatherface was born in the, what was that, the second Texas Chainsaw timeline? Yeah, the R. Lee Ermey one. The kids continue on to a scenic mountain road and into a tunnel, not realizing that the tunnel is taking them underneath some kind of force field situated over this ravine. They arrive at the cabin in the woods, which, like the gas station, is supposed to be pretty archetypal, but takes its most direct influence from the cabin in the Evil Dead series. It's shot the same way, has the same kind of construction, everything. Although, whereas Evil Dead was filmed in the woods of Tennessee, Cabin was made in Vancouver. Canadian tax breaks, man. They let themselves in and make themselves at home, although some of the bedroom decor is a little too extra for Holden.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Turns out that Zoran-owned painting was covering up a one-way mirror, which can also be called a two-way mirror. That's fucking stupid as hell. It immediately creates an awkward situation that appropriately feels right out of a movie.
This is happening.
But Holden is a decent guy and informs Dana about it, even offering to switch rooms with her to make her feel more comfortable. I will note that he starts stripping pretty much immediately after he gets in there though. I see what you're doing there, dude. As does everyone in Hadley and Sitterson's lab, since they're observing the kids on monitors in their control center. This is when we start to understand the horror movie making operation going on down here. For instance, Wendy is part of this place's chemicals department and offers a way to make this situation more slashery.
We're recommending a 50 milligram bump of Rohyptase to increase libido.
So,
She even says they've been gradually slowing down Jules' cognition through her new hair dye.
Dumb blonde, very artistic.
But not every aspect of their job is enjoyable, because they've occasionally got to deal with phone calls from Mordecai, who's known as the Harbinger and who takes his job way too seriously.
Cleanse them. Cleanse the world of their ignorance and sin. Bathe them in the crimson of... Am I on speakerphone?
No, absolutely not. Speakerphone, no, I wouldn't do that.
Yes, I am. I can hear the echo.
The scenes with Jenkins and Whitford are my favorite parts of the movie, mostly because of their amazing comedic abilities.
The Ancient Ones see everything, and they will not be... I'm still on speakerphone, aren't I?
And it looks like both actors kept the funny stuff going on set, even when they weren't shooting scenes for the movie.
And they always say movie food is not edible.
As the kids have a splashy mess around in the lake, the folks in the lab begin taking bets by department. As audience members, we're still a bit in the dark as to what they're doing down here. But Truman expresses trepidation over gambling on what happens to the teens, especially with the control center technicians affecting everything so much. Sitterson tells him not to worry though.
They have to make the choice of their own free will. Otherwise, the system doesn't work. Yeah, we rig the game as much as we need to, but in the end, they don't transgress.
They can't be punished.
So that means no harm in having a little fun while they monitor the situation. The kids start to party too, and under the chem department's influence, Jules is acting much more sexual than usual, going all out after Marty dares her to make out with a wolf head on the wall. Since they weren't allowed to use an actual taxidermied wolf head, I don't know, is that a Canadian law or something? Effects artist Dave Anderson had to make a synthetic, removable, washable tongue out of silicone that was dusted with powdered sugar. So hey, at least that thing was tasty for actor Anna Hutchison. A cellar door suddenly erupts open, again taking after Evil Dead, and we see that Kurt is no longer the genius he was shown to be earlier.
The wind must have blown it open.
That makes what kind of sense?
They descend into the cellar, where, by flashlight beam, they find a whole bunch of creeptastic keepsakes. Creepsakes?
Not sure it's awesome to be down here.
Marty's uncertainty doesn't stop him from being drawn towards old projector film though, as the others are equally attracted towards artifacts like a necklace near a wedding dress, a conch shell, a ballerina music box, and a puzzle orb. But it's a diary that Dana reads that gets their full attention first. It was written by one Anna Patience Buckner in 1903, and in it, she talks about living in hardship with overly religious, abusive parents. If only Patience Buckner had had a Black Phillip. But she didn't, so Patience wound up with a hacked off arm courtesy of her father, meaning she was barely able to finish writing down a passage in Latin that she says would restore her family's spirits. There's some debate as to whether or not Dana should read the passage.
Do not read the Latin. Read it. What the fuck?
But the whispers win out and she says the words. Out in the woods, unbeknownst to the kids, a few newly reanimated corpses begin digging themselves out of their graves and making their way towards the cabin.
We have a winner! It's the Buckners, ladies and gentlemen!
Yep, the teens have just unwittingly picked their adversaries for the movie, and looks like the maintenance department won the work wager. If we could just pause for a minute and appreciate what we're looking at here, each one of the monsters on this whiteboard, from zombies and clowns to snowmen and unicorns, could have become the enemies of our victims in the cabin, depending on which item they activated. So you can imagine the characters in, say, Jack Frost somehow activating the snowman monster and thus having to fight his annoying ass. Since Dana read from the Buckner diary, she and the others are gonna have to deal with the redneck torture zombie family. And don't get them mistaken with run-of-the-mill zombies. They're a very specific breed.
Like the difference between an elephant and an elephant seal.
Wendy tells Truman that all of the available monsters are remnants of the old world, supplied by powerful beings below. And naturally, the longtime technicians have developed favorites. Hadley's still holding out for a merman.
He had the conch in his
Oh,
hands.
in a couple more minutes, who knows what might have happened.
Sitterson tells Hadley that mermen are messy. Be happy with the Buckners. They do have a 100% clearance rate, just like the team over in Japan, who's still keeping up their end of the bargain with a Samara-type ghost demon tormenting a group of grade school girls. At the cabin, each person falls more and more into their stereotype. Jules can't stop flaunting her sexuality, Kurt's being a jockey joy, Dana's looking pretty demure, and Holden's adopted some smart guy glasses to better read the Latin in Patience's diary. Only Marty seems like his regular old self still.
I have a theory about all this.
He tries to tell his sister that everyone's acting weird, but she dismisses his theory as leaf-derived and he retires to go to his room. Kurt and Jules are playing woodsy grab-ass when he suggests they go all the way. She's reluctant at first, much to the chagrin of their pencil-necked audience, but with an increase of the temperature and the pumping in of some pheromones, Jules decides, you know what, this does look like a great place to get their grind on. Once again, Cabin offers an explanation for a genre-wide trope. This could be why so many slasher victims act so stupid and horny all the time. Cause trust me, partner, these two are horny, which Sitterson says is good for their audience, whoever that may be. Their audience is also into blood, so it's a good thing the Buckners are here. They stab Kurt with a sharp tool, then take him down with a bear trap on a chain, which is then used to reel in Jules for the first kill of the movie, when these Buckner bastards take a big ol' rusty saw and use it to cut her frickin' head off. Down in the lab, her death is met with quiet reverence as the technicians make an offering. They pull a handle, break a vial, and pour out some blood for their homies. Y'all collecting blood there, fellas? What you doing with all that blood? Kurt gets back to the cabin and tells everyone what happened to Jules.
She's gone.
And if they needed any proof, well, here's her head. She doesn't look so blonde right now. They lock out the Buckners and make plans to stick together, but that'd be too difficult for the puppet masters watching, so they pump in more stupid gas until Kurt decides that splitting up is the smarter idea.
Maybe we can cover more ground that way.
Yeah, good idea. Really?
They retreat to their rooms, where they're locked inside, and where Marty finds evidence that they're being watched. Before he can figure out exactly what's going on, though, Judah Buckner crashes through the window and pulls him outside. He throws half a garden shear into Marty's back and drags him below ground, and the technicians celebrate another sacrifice by pulling the handle and getting their blood fountain going again. Something's weird about this one, though, because it leaves the entire earth shaking. Dana and Holden manage to get together and make their way underneath the cabin into the Black Room, the place where Papa Buckner killed his kids. It's also where Matthew Buckner tries to kill Holden right now. Dana fights off the Mother Buckner with a crowbar to the face, which was done in a relatively simple but awesome way. Half a crowbar was guided by a chroma green rail into actor Dan Payne's face, with the crowbar's tip and blood effects getting added through CG later.
I'm just trying to make my mom proud, man.
She's so proud of you.
She's proud of me right now. Crowbar in the face. Attaboy.
I mean, she should be proud. The Buckners are an integral part to this movie, party, and it apparently took each of them 6 hours to get ready. That's a lot of time in the makeup chair. Dana gets some bonus stabs in with a knife, but doesn't hold on to the weapon when she's done, thanks to fuckery from the techs who are displeased with how this night is going.
Remember when you could just throw a girl in a volcano?
Kurt meets up with them, and as they escape from the storm cellar, he tells Dana that Marty didn't make it. After a quick beat of sadness, the kids are back aboard the RV and squealing wheels to get out of here. Speaking of squealing, the Japanese ghost demon is going off like a teapot right now, because apparently those kids were able to turn the tide and turn her into a frog.
そして今、キコの魂はこのカエルの中で幸せに生き続けていく。
Aw, good for them. Sitterson's not a fan though.
Fuck you!
With Japan joining the failures of the Swiss and the Argentines, the American technicians are the last team playing to appease the big guys downstairs and their own director above. Wendy stresses to them that they're humanity's last hope to keep the ancients from rising. But right now, they can't talk. The kids are busting ass out of there. Thankfully for the technicians, Sitterson runs down to the demolitions department and successfully blows up the tunnel, which causes a cave-in that sends the RV right back from whence it came. They find themselves trapped on the wrong side of the ravine, but Kurt the Daredevil thinks he can jump it on his bike. He delivers a passionate hero speech.
I'm coming back with cops and choppers and large fucking guns, and those things are gonna pay.
And gives the jump his all. And you know what? I think that guy might actually make it. No fucking way was he gonna make it, dog. Don't y'all remember that bird? It was a valiant but ultimately futile effort, and all it accomplished was giving the guys downstairs some more blood. Dana and Holden head back in the RV, but they've barely touched the gas pedal when Holden gets stabbed through the neck. Damn! I guess Father Buckner was stowing away in the RV. Always check those back seats, kids. The RV crashes into a lake, and as Dana makes her way out and up to the surface, the technicians start celebrating, because they've won! Mission accomplished! It's okay if the virgin of the group lives. After all, the final girl often does. She just had to have suffered and outlived all the others. As Hadley watches Dana swim to safety, he begins to realize that he's grown pretty damn fond of her.
Think of all the pain and the tequila is my lady!
Haha, never mind, it's tequila time! Clear the bar and get Pee-wee some platform shoes. As Dana is attacked by Matthew Buckner, the biggest and scariest redneck torture zombie, the technicians impassively celebrate their success, no longer concerned with her fate. It's some splendid dark comedy, how banal their office party is. In fact, the control room and cabin was based on Drew Goddard's upbringing in Los Alamos, New Mexico, where the Manhattan Project took place. The people working here were meant to be like the people who developed the atomic bomb. They were handling enormous destructive power with an objective of keeping people safe.
The downstairs is very much influenced by what I saw every day, which is some of the smartest men and women in the world going about their lives in just the most simple and mundane way, but they were going to work every day to make weapons that would destroy the world.
Hadley's still a bit bummed that they had to rely on the Buckners.
I just think it would have been cooler with a merman.
But he's bound to get a whole lot more upset thanks to a scary red phone ringing.
Turn the fucking music off.
It's their director upstairs who tells Hadley that one of the other kids is still alive. And if Dana gets killed before they do, why that's gonna result in an apocalyptic failure. She comes real close to getting killed by Matty Buck there until his attack gets thwarted by a telescopic bong, because Marty is still alive. I know, you knew. He and Dana get away from the redneck zombie and he takes her down into the Buckner grave. It's where the Buckners came from and where Marty had to chop up Judah Buckner with a trowel. It's also where Marty has discovered an elevator.
Somebody sent those dead fucks up here to get us.
With nowhere else to go, the siblings decide to take the elevator down. It begins its descent and then moves along a few other axes until they come face to face with a werewolf! Bad dog, bad dog! When they change the channel, they get to a scary ghost mist, and further exploration of their cell neighbors yield a Langolier that became a ballerina, and Pinhead's older cousin who found the lament configuration too square. Dana figures everything out when she sees this dude's puzzle orb.
We chose
They made us choose how we die.
Yep, all these monsters correspond with the trinkets in the cellar, and also with the names on the whiteboard in the lab. For instance, Sawhead here is a Hell Lord, and that ballerina is the Sugar Plum Fairy. Oh, and peep that angry molesting tree up there. That's another Evil Dead nod. Dana explodes in anger as their elevator is placed among an Indiana Jones archive of all the evil options they could have potentially chosen. Some of note, right off the bat, this Grady Girls looking pair, and a cell with mutants that kinda look like the Tethered, prescient. This image of all these glass cube elevators is one of the coolest shots of the movie, and was also a total pain in the ass to do. Production designer Martin Wist had to design the cubes in a mathematical way that would allow them to realistically slide around and fit in with one another. Then, the digital effects team at Rhythm and Hues Studio, led by Todd Shiflett, used the AI software Massive, which generates 3D crowd effects, to make a sort of brain that kept each of the individual elevators aware of where the others were. The contents of the elevators were shot in front of green screens and filled with all the fantastical monsters production could come up with. They had boxes of various sizes that allowed them to do cool perspective stuff, like making a regular tall dude appear to be a giant.
There was a standing box on a set that if something was ready, you take it out there and they'd shoot it and, put zombies in there. And they had a mini one, you put bugs in there, put my head in one, like a floating version of my head.
Other monsters shot in these boxes include an adorable little kid with a hatchet, some things that look like they rolled in from Jabba's palace, and their clan members. I mean, they did say they wanted monsters. With their subjects on their way out of Plato's cave, the technicians are freaking out. They stress to their security team that they have to take out Marty before Dana, otherwise the mission fails. Oh, and in case you wanted to know why Marty was immune to the chem team's efforts,
Whatever he's been smoking's been immunizing him to all our shit.
hashtag legalize it. Their elevator stops and a guard tries to apprehend them, but he's thwarted by the zombie arm of the Buckner Marty dismembered. The kids bang the guy's head against the wall, then take off, leaving the zombie arm behind to get the double tap in the elevator. As the siblings make their way through pristine hallways, the director's voice comes over a loudspeaker and tells them to stop fucking with the system.
What's happening to you is part of something bigger, something older than anything known.
She speaks in Lovecraftian terms and says they need to placate the Ancient Ones or else there will be unworldly terror unleashed upon the Earth. But Dana and Marty ain't buying it, and instead they head into a control room and hide. Under a hail of gunfire, Dana decides to fight fire with Nightmare and goes to evacuate the elevators full of monsters.
Let's get this party started.
Yep, they're getting this party started. And let me tell you, I find it pretty funny that the button she's pushing right there says Purge on it, because that's exactly what I was reminded of while kill counting the rest of this movie. We start with the 11 security guards standing there as an army of monsters descends upon them, meaning they get killed by all sorts of things. Snakes, zombies, evil Autobots. It's a complete fucking mess. It was so much of a mess that, much like the boxes full of monsters, they needed a lot of digital pre-visualization to make it come together. Each individual kill was first created in its own digital layer to help make sense of its place amidst the chaos, then shot in front of green screens, most of them with practical effects, before they were finally all combined for this amazing and messy shot of murder. The rest of this movie is messy as fuck too, man, so please be lenient with me as I do my kill counting best. Cause like here, man, a bunch of new guards find the zombies eating leftovers before the elevators ding open again, and then we've got a whole bunch of off-screen mayhem that I can't count. Best I can do here is count this detached arm as a person, and this one dude who gets killed by an alien bug. Those two are pretty safe bets. There's a long shot of chaos in the hallway here, but I only see 6 confirmed kills, 5 background bodies, and this one dude who gets tossed into the jaws of a giant snake. Pretty cool. Wide shots of the control center bunker were filmed at the Institute of Technology's aerospace campus near Vancouver, which was actually a bigger space than they had planned for. That meant they had to fill the unexpected volume with digital creations like the giant snake. And that went against what Drew Goddard wanted at first.
We had a rule on Cabin, which was if you can do it practically without visual effects, then we're gonna do it that way. And that's really the sort of rule that only you make if you're a first-time filmmaker, because it's so naive. because you realize after you do it, the reason we have visual effects is because they make your life so much easier.
I really appreciate that Goddard and his crew worked to make as many effects practical as they could. The effects were headed by David Leroy Anderson at AFX Studio, which also did the effects for Pet Sematary back when the company was run by David's dad Lance. Lance was around to help out for Cabin, as was David's wife Heather Langenkamp Anderson, who of course was Nancy freaking Thompson in the Nightmare on Elm Street series. She's also pretty good at escape rooms, I must say. The Andersons only had 6 to 8 weeks to make all these impressive monster effects, and they probably wouldn't have been able to do it without Warner Brothers giving them a 6,000 square foot workshop in Burbank to use. There, they worked with a crew of about 60 that included mold makers, illustrators, sculptors, you name it, to build as many, quote, non-humanoidal forms that they could come up with and ship them from LA to Vancouver. It was a mammoth undertaking that Dave Anderson thinks is unlikely to be repeated.
It'll never happen again. It'll never happen in this town again. This was like under one roof bringing together 10 small shops.
Then, when they were finally on set in Canada, they used over 200 gallons of blood for the film. Cause boy does Drew Goddard like it bloody.
Hey Dave, we need a big bag of guts.
The carnage continues in security cam footage shown in a montage and on screens in the background of the control room. This mayhem, which I'll count in just a minute, was written into the script as a single sentence. There is chaos on every screen.
It's an easy movie. It all happens over one story day, one big change, so I'm reading through the script and all of a sudden, literally, there's chaos on every screen.
I can't say often enough what a terrible idea it was to write the line, there is chaos on every screen. We've had more problems with this, just that one sentence, than anything else in the movie.
Well, you know what? I'm glad these kills were as difficult for them to shoot as they were for me and Zoran to count. But we did it! We came up with 19 visible victims, the most prominent among them a woman shooting herself. There's also a dude getting killed by the molesty tree, a guy getting suffocated with a bag, one dude on fire thanks to those grody Grady gals, a man getting his face melted by mutant spit up, a woman and a man being eaten by zombies, a guy just lying there dead, 5 people tied up, doused in gasoline, and lit on fire by those strangers-like killers, 5 more people dead thanks to the Sugar Plum Fairy girl who's dancing around their corpses, and finally, we see someone's severed pelvic bone held like a trophy by some goblins in a golf cart. The behind-the-scenes footage of that last one is great, by the way. Also impressive here is that the screens in the background weren't comped in during post-production. They actually shot all this footage and played it on the screens for real during production.
These screens, this is pretty incredible when they get all these going.
It's almost like when you go to like Crazy Eddie's or like
Channel,
Sears.
right?
Yeah.
This
It's
is
like
Crazy
Sears
Eddie's,
with decapitations, which was another title.
Very good.
As the technicians' attempts to maintain control go from bad to worse, a bat dragon thing scares Marty and Dana out of their hiding spot, and Marty naps himself a mutant headshot. But I'm not putting any of the monsters on the kill count. You can at least give me that, you ungrateful bastards. I will count this one scientist who gets knocked through the wall by the bat dragon thing, and the security guard crawling away in the background there. He's as good as dead. The siblings make a judgment call to escape through the bat dragon's hole in the wall, and that decision leaves them livelier than 5 more employees who are killed in a lethal montage. The first is from a werewolf, the second's from a clown, the third is a dead background body, the fourth is this guard whose bullets don't do shit to stop the clown's stab attack, and the fifth, my favorite, is this dude who is stabbed to death by a unicorn. Fuck yeah! The main technicians find themselves fully breached, and Truman is the first to go down, swarmed by a bunch of scary scarecrows who stab him all to hell until he activates a frickin' explosive and blows them all away. The explosion knocks Hadley silly, and in his near-death delirium, he sees the most beautiful creature in the entire world crawling towards him. Look, Hadley, they're finally part of your world.
Oh, come on!
And dude, Sitterson was not lying. These things are messy as all hell. Gotta love it. The merman, like many of the effects, was entirely practical, and is Heather Langenkamp's favorite effect she's ever worked on, as she told me this year at Texas Frightmare.
I really liked it, just how simple and not over the top it was. It was perfect for where it was
The
playing.
blood out of the blowhole wasn't over the top?
I didn't think so.
Yeah, I guess not, compared to what it could have been. Looks like they only used the very end of this blood geyser in the movie, which, was probably the right call. Yes, sir. Sitterson opens a hatch to climb through, but Wendy's unable to join him on account of being a little tentacle-tied all of a sudden. So he continues on his own and runs through the Aztec level from GoldenEye until he's stabbed in the gut by Dana! Dun dun dun! He realizes who she is and begs her to kill her brother before he slides down against the wall and dies. Come on, Dana, kill your brother. It was the man's dying wish. She and Marty make their way deeper and find the bloodograms on the wall that represent them and all their friends. Could someone please tell them what the hell these mean and where the hell they are right now? Oh good, Sigourney Weaver. Yeah, Ripley's the director, and she shows up to explain everything to the characters and the audience. Across every different culture, she says, there is a ritual that requires 5 sacrificees. The whore, who has to die first, then the athlete, the scholar, and the fool, who all have to die, but in any kind of order, and finally, the virgin, who can live or die. That's you, Dana.
Me? Virgin? We work with what we have.
The director tells them that if this ritual fails, the Ancient Ones, who used to rule the Earth and who are actually hanging out just below them right now, will return topside and fuck shit up. Like I keep saying, this premise could potentially explain almost any other horror movie you've ever seen. And while that may not be exactly what Goddard and Whedon intended, they did strive to write a script that was both rewarding to hardcore horror fans and accessible to people who had never seen a scary movie before.
I don't think you can set out to subvert a genre. I think you have to set out to embrace the genre and try to do something new. And at the end of the day, that's what we did with Cabin. We were just trying to make something new and yet at the same time give honor to those that have come before us. And I'm very proud of that.
It also gave Goddard the chance to be a director for the first time instead of just the screenwriter who often doesn't get a lot of say on set. He didn't take that opportunity for granted.
I treated directing this film as though I will never be able to direct again and approached it with that mentality. If I will never be able to direct again, let's get everything I've ever wanted to do in this one movie.
That's probably why he was so hands-on during production, down to showing that messy merman exactly how he should move. In my opinion, his work paid off. I think this movie's a masterpiece. There are only 8 minutes left for Marty to die so the ritual can be fulfilled. And if it's not, every human being on Earth will be tortured and killed. It will be the literal end of the world. Marty's unfazed by the threat, but it looks like the director's words have worked on Dana. I mean, sorry bro, but you know how the song goes.
The whole world, Marty, is in your hands.
Before Dana can pull the trigger, a werewolf appears and noms on her shoulder. And I'm not sure if that was originally in the script or just added for Sigourney Weaver's sake, because apparently she was fucking pumped about that werewolf.
I've never seen anyone more excited about working with a werewolf than Sigourney Weaver. She would ask every day, is the werewolf gonna be here? When is the werewolf showing up? Can I please get a picture taken with the werewolf?
As the Wolfman eats into Dana's neck, Marty beats the director in a fight for the gun, which he then uses to shoot the werewolf away. The director doesn't give up on her mission though, and she's super about to save the whole world when Patience Buckner appears and puts an axe in the back of her head. Oh yeah, that'll do it. And she definitely ain't coming back from wherever Marty kicks her down into. Marty takes a seat next to his critically injured sister, and the two of them have a heart-to-heart.
I'm so sorry I almost shot you.
I'm sorry I let you get attacked by a werewolf and then into the world.
And I'ma just add these two to the count right now as they sit there and share a last J, cause they about to go out, courtesy of this movie's ultimate villains.
Giant evil gods.
Then, yeah man, as the siblings hold hands, the world around them begins to fall apart, and the movie ends with a giant hand reaching out of the earth to begin enacting horrors unknown. This final shot, in keeping with the spirit of the movie, was done with as many practical effects as possible. A team at Grant McEwen Design built miniature trees using a whole bunch of science I can't even begin to explain.
So we employed carbon fiber cores and then wrapped it with multiple layers of flexible polyethylene and polyurethane foam, and then skinned it with latex.
They filmed those trees falling in front of a blue screen, which they also did with dust and dirt particles that would be too difficult to render digitally.
Random kinetic motion of real three-dimensional moving objects is almost impossible to duplicate in a computer because computers work in mathematical curves and ellipses, nature's not like that.
They then combined those blue screen shots with a crane shot of the woods in Vancouver and some digital additions like the cabin and obviously the hand to give us this memorable depiction of the end of the world. But I can't count the whole world on the kill count. I don't know what you expected. That's impossible for me to do. So let's see how many kills there were besides that and get to the numbers. Oh, bong water! Marty. Aside from the nearly 7 billion people who presumably died when the Ancient Ones ended the world, I saw 56 deaths in Cabin in the Woods. From what I could tell, there were 8 women, 42 men, and 6 victims of indeterminate gender, giving us a mixed pie for the Ancient Ones to try. Goes down easier than a whole planet, I'll tell you what. With a runtime of 95 minutes, we had a kill on average every 1.7 minutes, and then the world ended. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to the unicorn guy. I know Hadley being killed by a merman is great and all, but this dude was stabbed to death by a frickin' gosh darn unicorn. Are you kidding me? I love it, man. Dull machete for lamest kill will go to SITTERSON, who got a single stab to the chest. Sit her down there, son. And that's it. The Cabin in the Woods premiered in 2012 and is a landmark horror comedy that every fan of the genre should see. I've got one more kill count left for you this year, because on New Year's Eve, we're tackling society. But until then, I'm James A. Janice. This has been the Kill Count. Thanks a lot for watching this Kill Count. I want to thank some patrons like Liam Foster, JLP Animations, Jackie Rosbach, Rick Axe, Corey Carson, and Autumn, aka Mizzou. I really love Cabin in the Woods, obviously, even though I'm not a big fan of Joss Whedon's other stuff. What do you think of Cabin? Is it a landmark masterpiece, or is it totally overrated? Be good people.